What if the love of your life vanished without a trace, leaving behind nothing but unanswered questions? Helen Winters never expected her life to turn out this way. At 60, she had built a thriving business and created a life that many admired. People around her saw success, happiness, and stability. But beneath that exterior, there was a woman who longed for something more, someone to share her life with, someone who could fill the loneliness that had crept into her heart. Despite all her achievements, Helen felt the ache of solitude gnawing at her. Helen had been married twice before, but both unions ended in divorce. As the years passed, she found herself increasingly focused on her work and less on the idea of romance. Her friends and family could see her success, but few understood the quiet yearning for companionship that lurked beneath her strong exterior. Then, everything changed when she met Max Davis. He was young, full of life, and had the kind of energy that Helen had not encountered in years. He was charming, with an infectious smile that made her feel alive again. To Helen, it felt like a second chance at love, a new beginning. Within months, Max had become the center of her world. Their whirlwind romance defied all odds, and before anyone could question it, they were married in a small, intimate ceremony. People were shocked, not just by the age difference, but by how quickly it all happened. Yet to Helen it felt right. She thought she had found the person who would spend the rest of her life with her. But just 4 months later, Max disappeared. Have you ever found yourself in an unexpected relationship where the passion is so intense that you overlook the red flags? Helen's love for Max seemed like something out of a fairy tale, but as their story unfolded, there were signs that something wasn't quite right. It's easy to be swept away in the excitement of a new relationship, especially when everything feels so perfect. But have you ever questioned whether you were too quick to trust someone, or wondered if you saw what you wanted to see, not what was really there? Helen believed in Max with all her heart, but his sudden disappearance left her questioning everything. What if there had been more to their relationship than she realized? Was it love, or something far more dangerous lurking behind the scenes? The mystery surrounding Max's disappearance only deepens as the investigation unfolds. Was it all a carefully planned escape, or was there something darker at play? Could Helen have missed something crucial? Welcome to the True Crime Journal HQ. If you're intrigued by mysteries like this, hit that like button and stay tuned. We're about to uncover the secrets that Helen was left to unravel alone. Helen Winters had always been a woman of strength, both in character and in achievement. By the time she reached her 60s, she had already accomplished more than most people would in a lifetime. A self-made entrepreneur, Helen built a thriving business from scratch. Her company had gained recognition in the industry, and people admired her for her sharp mind and relentless drive. She had been married twice before, and both marriages had ended in divorce. The reasons for the breakups were complicated, but Helen never let them define her. She focused on her career, poured her energy into growing her business, and built a circle of friends who supported her. Still, there was a lingering sense of loneliness that even the busiest of days couldn't erase. Though she had achieved much in life, something was missing. Deep down, she yearned for companionship, for someone to share her success and her solitude. Helen wasn't looking for a fairy tale or a quick fix. She wanted a connection that was real, that could fill the emptiness that she had grown accustomed to. It wasn't that Helen hadn't had opportunities to date. There were men who admired her, who were drawn to her intelligence and independence. But none of them seemed to spark the kind of connection Helen was longing for. She wasn't interested in settling for anything less than a deep, meaningful bond. So Helen carried on with her life, successful, yes, but still searching for something more. It all changed when Helen met Max Davis. It was a late summer evening at a charity event that Helen had agreed to attend at the insistence of a few friends. The event was held in a beautifully restored hall, the kind that exuded an air of elegance. People in their finest clothes mingled, exchanging business cards and polite conversation. Max was unlike anyone she had met before. He was young, 28 to be exact, but there was something about his energy that felt contagious. He was tall, with sharp features and a smile that could light up a room. But it wasn't just his looks that caught Helen's attention, it was his presence. Max was the kind of person who could command attention without saying a word. As the night wore on, Helen found herself drawn to him. Max, with his bright eyes and contagious laugh, seemed to sense that they shared a unique connection. Their conversation flowed effortlessly from one topic to another. He spoke passionately about his aspirations, his desire to make it in the world of sales, and his dreams of starting his own business someday. Helen was captivated. There was something refreshing about Max. His youthful energy reminded her of the excitement she had once felt early in her own career. And for the first time in years, she found herself laughing and smiling in a way that felt genuine and carefree. Despite the age difference, there was no denying the chemistry between them. Helen felt a flutter of something she hadn't experienced in a long time. This wasn't just a fleeting attraction. It felt deeper, more real. As the evening came to a close, Max asked if they could exchange numbers. Helen, somewhat surprised by her own eagerness, agreed. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something important. Have you ever met someone who made you feel alive again? Someone who brought excitement into your life when you least expected it? Imagine being in Helen's shoes. Did she just find a new connection? Or was something else starting to take shape? From the moment they began talking, their connection seemed to grow stronger each day. Max's energy and charm were intoxicating, and Helen found herself drawn to him more and more with each passing day. What started as casual conversations turned into late-night calls, then frequent meetups. They spent hours talking about everything from their childhoods to their hopes for the future. Max made Helen feel seen, heard, and valued in a way that she hadn't experienced in years. His ambition and determination matched her own, and his youthful optimism reminded her of the dreams she'd once had in her youth. The more she got to know him, the more she felt as though they were on the same wavelength. As their relationship progressed, Helen's friends and family began to express concern. They raised questions about the age gap. Helen was 32 years older than Max. They wondered whether Max was truly in the relationship for the right reasons. Some speculated that he might be after Helen's wealth or status, but Helen quickly dismissed those concerns. She saw in him a man who was ambitious, driven, and eager to make something of himself. She believed in him. Despite the doubts from those around her, Helen grew more and more convinced that Max was the one. Her mind was made up. The age difference no longer seemed significant, and the warnings from her loved ones faded into the background. She saw only the man she was falling in love with. Their relationship moved quickly, and before long they were inseparable. Helen had never felt so alive, so certain of the future. Max was the breath of fresh air she had been waiting for. It wasn't just love. It was passion, excitement, and possibility all rolled into one. But as their bond deepened, the stakes of their relationship began to grow as well. What had started as a whirlwind romance was now something far more intense. Would this love last, or would the pressure of their unusual relationship prove too much to handle? Helen had always been a woman of decisive action, and when it came to Max, her heart didn't hesitate. Their connection was undeniable, and after only a few months of dating, they decided to marry. For many, the speed of their relationship seemed almost reckless. Yet to Helen, it felt right. Their love story was like something out of a romance novel, unexpected, passionate, and full of promise. Their wedding was small but deeply personal. Held in the same charming venue where they had first met, the ceremony was intimate, with only a few close friends and family in attendance. Helen wore a simple, elegant dress, the kind that complemented her confidence and maturity. Max, on the other hand, looked every bit the part of the young man who had swept her off her feet, radiating both excitement and pride as they exchanged vows. The moment they were pronounced husband and wife, the crowd erupted in applause, and for a fleeting second, Helen felt as if time had stood still. It was a new beginning, an affirmation that she had found the love and companionship she had long been searching for. In that moment, it felt as though nothing else mattered. The world outside seemed irrelevant, and all that existed was the bond between her and Max. But as the guests celebrated, there was a noticeable undercurrent of tension in the room. Some of her family members exchanged quiet glances, their faces revealing concern that Helen tried to ignore. Her friends, though happy for her, couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. The age gap between Helen and Max was a point of contention that they had tried to brush aside for the sake of her happiness. Yet, in the back of their minds, the question lingered. Was this really the right choice for Helen? Despite the unease that circled around her, Helen was unwavering in her belief that she had found her perfect match. She spoke of Max with a kind of certainty that made her seem unshakable. She was convinced that they were the ideal couple, that their connection was more than just a fleeting passion. Their relationship had been full of joy, laughter, and shared dreams. Helen had never felt more alive, and she believed that Max's presence in her life was proof that age truly was just a number. She told her friends and family that their love was authentic, that it wasn't based on superficial attraction, but rather on a deep emotional bond. In her eyes, Max was everything she had been searching for, a man who admired her strength, who shared her ambitions, and who genuinely seemed to care about her happiness. To Helen, their relationship wasn't just about the physical or emotional aspects of love. It was about companionship and mutual respect. Max's energy and youthful exuberance were exactly what Helen needed. She had spent so many years focusing on building her business and fighting loneliness that she had forgotten what it was like to feel truly cherished. Max brought that back into her life, and she was determined to protect it at all costs. Helen would often tell her family, "It's never too late to find true love," and she meant every word. She believed that her marriage to Max was a testament to that idea, proof that life could still hold unexpected, beautiful moments, even in the later chapters. But as much as Helen wanted to shut out the doubts of those around her, they still lingered. Her friends and family couldn't fully shake their concerns. They wondered if Max truly loved Helen for who she was, or if he was after something else entirely. His background was still a mystery to many, and his past, though seemingly clean, raised questions that Helen wasn't quite ready to confront. Despite the doubts, she had chosen to ignore them. She believed in the strength of their bond, and in her heart, that was all that mattered. Do you think it's ever okay for people to judge an unconventional relationship, or should love be enough to stand on its own? Let us know in the comments below. Your thoughts could spark a much-needed discussion about what truly makes a relationship work. It started with a phone call, or rather, the lack of one. Max had been away on a business trip, as he often was. Helen had grown used to his unpredictable schedule, but something felt different this time. Max had promised to call her every night to check in, but after 48 hours without a word, Helen started to feel a creeping unease. At first, she dismissed it. He's probably caught up in meetings, she thought. Max was ambitious, always hustling, and his schedule was often erratic. But as the days passed and the silence stretched on, Helen's worry deepened. Why hasn't he called, she wondered. It wasn't like him to disappear without explanation, even if he had been busy. She tried calling him multiple times, but each call went straight to voicemail. A sense of dread began to settle over her, an emotion she couldn't shake. She replayed their last conversation in her mind, looking for any clues, any sign that something was wrong. Max had seemed normal, upbeat, just like always. He had mentioned a few details about his meetings, nothing that raised any red flags. Yet now the silence seemed more than just an oversight. It felt deliberate. The thought that Max could have left her crossed her mind briefly, but was quickly dismissed. Max wouldn't just disappear, not after everything they had been through. Could he have left me? That nagging question started to echo in her mind, growing louder with each passing hour. Helen refused to believe it. She knew Max loved her. They were building something together, yet the uncertainty lingered, gnawing at her with every unanswered call. With no response and the worry growing by the hour, Helen took action. She reached out to the local police, hoping that they would help her track down Max. But the response she received wasn't what she had expected. The officers were polite but dismissive, suggesting that Max might have just needed some time alone, or, worse, that he had decided to leave her. Leave me. The idea was unthinkable to Helen. She knew Max better than anyone. She had trusted him with her heart, and the thought of him abandoning her without any explanation was too painful to even consider. Yet the police insisted that she be patient. They assured her that people often disappeared for personal reasons, and that Max would likely return on his own. Helen wasn't convinced. She knew Max wouldn't just leave without a word. She refused to sit idly by and wait. She started asking around, contacting his friends, colleagues, and anyone who might have seen him. All her efforts came up empty. No one had seen Max, and no one knew where he was. His colleagues didn't know of any meetings or appointments that might have kept him busy. No one had heard from him. In a panic, Helen took it a step further. She called the hotel where Max had been staying, but the staff hadn't seen him in days. She visited his office, hoping for some clue about where he had gone, but again, nothing. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Days turned into weeks, and the frustration only deepened. Helen couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, something more than just a spontaneous disappearance. When the police finally agreed to open a formal investigation, Helen clung to the hope that they would find answers. But as the investigation unfolded, the reality of the situation began to sink in. It wasn't long before the police discovered discrepancies in Max's background. They learned that he had been involved in multiple failed business ventures, many of which he had kept hidden from Helen. Some of his former associates hinted at financial troubles, suggesting that Max had been under a great deal of stress in the months leading up to his disappearance. The police dug deeper, and as they did, more troubling details emerged. Max had been in debt, and there were rumors of shady deals and even potential criminal connections. It seemed that his charming personality and optimistic demeanor had masked a much darker side, a side that Helen had never known. The deeper they went, the more secrets they uncovered. Max had been living a double life, and it appeared that his marriage to Helen might have been just one part of a larger scheme to escape his mounting troubles. But could this really explain his disappearance? Had Max faked his own disappearance to escape his problems, or was there something more sinister at play? As the weeks passed, the mystery surrounding Max's disappearance deepened. A report surfaced that Max had been seen arguing with a man at a local bar just days before he vanished. The details were vague, but it was enough to spark suspicion. Who was this man and what had they been arguing about? Some speculated that the argument was over money or perhaps a deal gone wrong, but no one knew for sure. The police followed up on the lead, but it didn't seem to go anywhere. The more they looked into Max's past, the more they realized how much they still didn't know about him. His financial troubles, his mysterious associates, the cryptic argument. It all pointed to the possibility that Max's disappearance was part of something much bigger than anyone had initially suspected. Helen was heartbroken. She had trusted Max, opened up to him in ways she had never done with anyone else. But now she was left with more questions than answers. Was he trying to escape his past? Had he planned his disappearance all along, or had something darker happened to him? What do you think happened to Max? Was he trying to escape his past, or was someone trying to silence him? Could it have been a desperate escape from the life he had created? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Your input could help unravel this mystery. As the weeks stretched into months, speculation about Max's disappearance grew. Rumors began to swirl, each theory more outlandish than the last. Some people believed that Max's disappearance was part of a larger scam. Perhaps the marriage had never been real, and it was all just a well-executed scheme to get closer to Helen's wealth. There were whispers that Max had been using Helen as a means to escape his financial troubles, but the man she had known was nothing like the person the rumors painted. Helen's heart ached as she tried to reconcile the loving husband she had known with the man now painted as a con artist. She couldn't bring herself to believe it, but the more the investigation continued, the more Helen was confronted with unsettling facts about Max's past. His charm, his youth, his ambition, all of it seemed too perfect, too calculated, for someone who had nothing to hide. But as the details of his life slowly emerged, it became clear that there was more to Max's story than Helen had ever known. The police began to uncover that Max had been living a double life. Behind his polished exterior, he was hiding financial troubles that were far worse than anyone had imagined. It seemed that Max had been using his charm not just to win over Helen, but to manipulate people in his professional life as well. He had associates with questionable motives and connections that raised alarm bells. How had Helen not seen this? The questions kept coming, but there were no clear answers. The investigation continued, but the more the authorities delved into Max's life, the murkier the picture became. There was no sign of foul play, no ransom notes, no evidence of a struggle. Max had simply disappeared, as if he had vanished into thin air. The police questioned his colleagues, his friends, and anyone who might have had insight into his life, but nothing solid materialized. Helen was left to wonder, was Max's disappearance just a desperate escape from the pressures of his past, or had something more dangerous and sinister been at play? The deeper the investigation went, the more elusive the truth seemed. Was it possible that Max had planned everything from the beginning, that the whole relationship had been a carefully constructed act? As Helen tried to make sense of the situation, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. She had trusted Max completely, let him into her life and her heart. Had she overlooked the signs? Was there something she should have noticed that could have changed everything? The guilt began to consume her. She found herself questioning every moment they had shared, wondering if she had been blind to the truth. Could she have done something to prevent his disappearance? Was it possible that she had been so caught up in the whirlwind romance that she had missed the clues that might have exposed Max for who he really was? As the years passed, Helen tried to move on with her life. She threw herself into her work, trying to find a sense of purpose again. But no matter how hard she tried, the memory of Max and his mysterious disappearance continued to haunt her. She couldn't escape the feeling that the truth was just out of reach, that there was something she would never fully understand. At night, when the house was quiet, Helen would find herself thinking about Max. His smile, his laugh, the way he made her feel alive. But then she would be hit with the stark reality of his absence, the fact that he had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only questions and uncertainty. She often wondered if she would ever truly know what happened to him. Was he really trying to escape, or had something more sinister happened to him? As time passed, the case grew colder, and the answers became less and less likely to surface. But the questions remained, gnawing at Helen in ways she couldn't shake. What do you think happened to Max? Was Helen involved, or was Max simply a victim of his own circumstances? Could Helen have missed something crucial, or was she just caught in a situation beyond her control? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. The weeks that followed Max's disappearance felt like a blur for Helen. She tried to return to some semblance of normalcy, focusing on her business and her daily routines, but everything had changed. She found it difficult to even think about moving on when the mystery of Max's vanishing loomed over her like an impenetrable fog. At first, Helen believed that time would heal the wound. She focused on her work and her friends, hoping to find peace. But it wasn't that simple. No matter how much she tried to bury the memories of Max, they would surface in the quiet moments when she least expected it. His absence created an emptiness she couldn't fill, and she couldn't stop wondering, what really happened to him? Helen began to question her own judgment, wondering if she had been too naive. Had she missed the signs that something was off? Could she have prevented what happened? These questions haunted her. They affected her ability to trust herself, and at times it felt as though her entire life had been turned upside down by the disappearance of someone she had once loved so deeply. Max's disappearance was officially ruled as an open case, but the police made no headway. Weeks turned into months, and months turned into years. No new leads emerged, and the case slowly became colder with every passing day. Helen's life, once full of purpose and hope, began to feel as though it was stuck in limbo. She could no longer move forward or backward. She was trapped in the uncertainty of what had happened to Max, and no matter what she did, she couldn't escape it. As time wore on, whispers about Max's disappearance began to spread through the town. People still remembered the whirlwind romance between Helen and Max, the sudden marriage, and the shocking disappearance that followed. Some had their own theories about what happened to him, and many of them weren't kind. A few people began to speculate that Helen knew more than she was letting on, that perhaps she was hiding something. They wondered if her motivations had been driven by something other than love. Was there a hidden agenda? Had she been in on Max's plans to disappear? The rumors started slowly but grew louder over time. Some believed that Helen's business success might have been a factor in Max's disappearance. Others whispered about possible financial troubles or debts that could have been the true reason for Max's vanishing. For Helen, the whispers were a cruel reminder of her own guilt. The doubt cast upon her by those around her only deepened her own sense of confusion. She didn't have the answers, and now people were accusing her of being part of the mystery. Had she known? Was she involved in something she didn't fully understand? These questions churned inside her as the town continued to speculate. Despite the rumors, the case remained open but unsolved. No one could definitively say what had happened to Max. Was he really the victim of a crime? Or had he staged his own disappearance, leaving behind only the wreckage of a life and a marriage that had once seemed so full of promise? As time passed, the mystery of what had truly happened to Max Davis lingered in the town, unresolved and haunting. Years had passed since Max's disappearance, and yet the questions remained. The truth seemed just out of reach, and the town had moved on, at least on the surface. But for Helen, it was impossible to move on from the uncertainty. The whispers about Max's fate continued to echo in the back of her mind. She could never fully escape the haunting memories of the man she had loved, the man who had vanished, leaving behind only questions and unresolved feelings. Was Max Davis murdered, or did he disappear of his own accord? These were the questions that Helen could never stop asking herself. No matter how much time passed, the mystery refused to be solved. And perhaps the most agonizing question of all was whether Helen had played a role in what happened to him. Could she have known something she wasn't sharing? Was she just another victim of the lies Max had spun? Or had his disappearance truly been a result of his own desperate need to escape? The answers seemed elusive, and Helen was left to live with the mystery, never knowing for sure what happened to the man she had once trusted with her heart. What do you think happened to Max? Do you believe Helen had any involvement, or was Max simply a victim of his own choices? Could Helen have prevented it? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story intriguing, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more gripping true crime stories.